want to walk you through today this notion of neurological preference. The brain and the nervous system definitely are wired with a preferred way of organizing the structures of our body, especially when faced with real or perceived threat or stress. And under that real or perceived threat or stress long enough, we kind of wear out these preferred specialized ways, which are brilliant by design because they keep us doing what we want to do. They ensure our survival. And if we're simply moving without awareness, if we're doing our workout or doing our run and kind of in this autopilot place, we can serve to simply wear out or fatigue and exhaust these preferred neurological tendencies, which then when threat, perceived or real, or stress goes up, we're in a bit of a pickle because we don't have any other options. And in my humble opinion, that's really where we run into problems. It has very little to do with age, other than the fact that with age we've had the ability to be on the planet longer and possibly be in these patterns of specialization and tendency unchecked for longer periods. But that can happen at 20, at 30, that might not happen till 80. It really is about this dance and this choreography of our neurological tendencies, the environment that we live and express and relate to, and the level of support we have. So I'm gonna kind of play with you today because I think it's way more powerful to simply feel this in your body. But it's an example of simply moving a joint a certain way doesn't necessarily mean you're doing what you think you're doing. And there's definitely in each of us, born into us, a neurological preference for organizing our joints and the relationship of our joints in a very specific way to, thank goodness, ensure our survival. But again, left unchecked, and if we're training on this autopilot way, we can actually serve to wear those out, which is pretty dangerous actually. So what I'm going to invite you to do is come to standing, and however you need to stand to be able to feel the center of your heels, the center of your calcaneus. So if a foot has to be turned out, and ideally we want shoes off, socks off. Now we're going to divide the foot into a rear foot, a heel, and a forefoot, the ball of the foot. What I'm going to invite you to do is simply shift your weight side to side, feeling the heel, the calcaneus, kind of topple. So as you go to the left, you'll feel yourself come on the outside of that left calcaneus, the inside of the right calcaneus, keeping the forefoot nice and relaxed on the floor. So we're not on rails, the feet aren't doing this. The front of the foot staying here, and it's the heel that is rocking side to side. Okay, so center of mass, the torso is going to one side and to the other side. And go to the point where you feel like you might fall, and it's totally okay to fall. It's actually a great exercise to not be in control all the time, to allow this sense of falling. And notice how you fall to each side, how that feels. At what point does the sense of I'm going to fall kind of happen? Now, what you're going to do is whichever side kind of felt scariest to fall to, we're going to put that leg forward. Okay? And then what we're going to do is have the knee bent. So that scarier side, that knee is forward and it's bent, okay? And you're going to shift the weight again into the kind of this little bit of a scary place. And what you're going to play with here is straightening the knee, taking the knee from flexion to extension. Do it a couple times. And I want you to notice, how are you doing that? How are you straightening that knee? Okay, so how I'm straightening that knee, how I'm going from flexion to extension, is I'm moving this proximal end of my tibia. I'm thinking about arcing that tibia down to the floor underneath me, and that's straightening my knee. There's certain muscles involved in creating, moving from this shape to this shape by moving my bones that way. Now, bend the knee again, and you're going to straighten it. This time the only rule is you can't do it the way you did it a second ago. So how are you going to do it? Okay, the way I've figured out how to do it is I'm thinking about the other end of my shin bone, the other end of my tibia, and my foot, and if I kick it, that changes the relationship of my bones, and I go from knee flexion to knee extension. And I use very different muscles, okay? So both starting and ending shapes are the same, but how I got from A to B is different. Now, I want us to consider a third. What's a third way that I could move from point A to point B? Knee flexion to knee extension. I could move above the knee. I could rotate the femur and stack it on top of the shin bone. And I'm just going to flip around here. You can see that in order to do that, all of me rotates. Yeah? So then I could rotate the torso back the other way, and there's going to be different muscles in this version of knee extension than the previous two. Now, let's see, is there a fourth way that I could go from knee flexion to knee extension? I'm driving with my back leg in this version rather than the hip to come up, and again, different muscles are working to bring me into this shape. Once here again, I could rotate, I could flex that hip a little bit more and let that leg come off. And this knee extension is very different feeling than this one, okay? So then I'm going to come back to standing, back to feeling my calcaneus, back to shifting the weight side to side. And what I notice is I can move my center of mass a lot further in each direction, letting the calcaneus fall over, than I could at the beginning. So for me, that's really the move it or lose it, is that the overall kind of window of tolerance or window of safety in which I can be navigating my body and the environment that it's in goes up. That's good news. So just some different things to think about, to explore when you're moving on your run or in your yoga practice or your workout at the gym, is I challenge you to not just go on autopilot, but consider, how are you doing the exercise? How are you doing that rep? How are you doing that pose? Can you get in and out of it a different way? figure it out. It doesn't matter what it looks like. Be curious, explore. Your body is very resilient. It is more capable than you even know. But by training this way, now all of a sudden when my threat level goes up, I have access to a map in my brain that allows me many different ways to create knee extension, knee flexion. Whereas I really only had one if I was kind of on autopilot and just changing my shape. So I invite you to just have fun with that. Explore, play, discover, and notice what you notice. And please, please, please know that with awareness and ease, change is always possible and life-changing. Namaste.